Is finally wrapped up for former Duluth youth pastor Jackson Gatlin. He's headed to prison for using his position of authority to gain access to and sexually assault many girls. Northern News Now's Isabella Zadra attended both days of his sentencing.
As a child in that environment, I shouldn't have been responsible for my own protection.
Churches are supposed to be a place of worship and peace, but those sexually abused by youth pastor Jackson Gatlin say that they're still looking for their own peace.
And this was the place they should have been safest, right? And instead, it was the exact opposite. It was torture.
Gatlin was over 19 years old when the abuse started, with victims ranging in ages from 12 to 16. Although his sentencing was split into 2 days, the outcome was no surprise. Earlier this month, Gatlin took a plea deal. In that deal, he agreed to serve at least 13 years and will register as a sex offender. The judge spoke directly to Gatlin after the sentence and said that Gatlin is in great debt to these women because without that plea deal, he could be spending a lot longer in prison. Paul McBride is an attorney representing the victims in this case. He said everyone worked together on that plea deal and that although it may not have been perfect, it got their abuser behind bars.
Is it everything they would have liked or wanted? Probably not 100%. But nonetheless, again, it's closure.
McBride added the criminal case may be over, but there are currently 8 civil cases open against Gatlin, his parents, the Duluth Vineyard Church, and the national organization that will hopefully give everyone some answers. On Monday, victims shared the impact Gatlin's abuse has had on their lives. While victims did not want to do on-camera interviews after the sentencing, several of them spoke at a panel held earlier this month when the plea deal was announced. Hannah Howe spoke on how grateful she is that their case made it this far and what those criminal charges mean to her.
I know I have a long road ahead of me. I'm hoping our criminal and our pending civil case helps me gain some closure.
In Duluth, Isabella Zadra, Northern News Now.
And McBride and other attorneys involved with this case encourage anyone who's been a victim of sexual assault to reach out, saying it's never too late to seek justice. The number for the National Sexual Assault Hotline and other resources can be found at northernnewsnow.com.